Welcome to The Journey. I am your host today, Connie Salika, and today things are a little different. Julieann is the subject today. The spotlight is on her, and we are going to dig deep. We are going to get to know her in a way I don't know her, and in full disclosure, she and I are very good friends. I adore this woman, and there's a lot about her I don't know, so I'm looking forward to this, to get to know her as you get to know her. And we know her as a very passionate, wonderful woman. Her passion for the Lord is obvious, and it's what was attractive to me when we first got to know each other. And I think it was back in 2018 that we met.
Yes.
And we were introduced by Jamie and Andrew Wommack, and I'm just thrilled to be a part of this diving into Julieann Day, okay? So
wow, well, this is exciting and a surprise. But it's something that our viewers have asked for a long time. They're like, you do the journey on everybody else. What about your journey? And when I asked her to do it, she was like, absolutely. And I couldn't think of anybody else that could do the most amazing job as she's going to do, as she literally pulls things out of me.
Well, let's see. But I want to note that we did not talk to each other this morning, and we both wore animal prints, okay? So
yes.
That's...
And we both are Italian.
Yes, so it's just two Italian girls having coffee, and
yes.
Let's get going.
Yes.
Okay, so I know you and your husband, Butch, and your two beautiful daughters, and I know your mom, Janet, but I know nothing about your dad, about you and your early days and how you grew up. Can you tell us a little bit about your childhood?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was the youngest of three girls. And my two sisters are 11 months apart, and my mom was in such an abusive marriage that I almost have asked her times, why did you have me?
Abusive marriage to your dad?
To my father, yes. And so I've always asked her, why did you wait 3 years to have me when you already knew that what your life was going to be like, and you knew that you probably couldn't stay being abused like that? So I can just take it back real quick. My father, unfortunately, was in a very bad situation at home himself as a child, and he experienced things that no kid should ever experience with their mother, and because of that, that's why he chose alcohol to numb him as he got older, and then also he chose drugs. Valium was like the drug back then, in the 60s, and so he was
the Valium prescribed to him?
Yes, it was prescribed, and so he dealt with a lot of fear and anxiety, and so he would do both together. It was, you can't mix the two, and it would be horrible. Other than that, he was like the funniest, nicest, and no one could ever believe that my mom was being abused the way that she was, and then us girls, because he was so funny and so fun to be around. But it was when that door was shut, all hell would break loose.
Mm-hmm. And that's pretty typical of alcoholic behavior.
Yeah.
From what I know about that. So how old were you when your parents finally got divorced?
So I was 9 years old, and it was a surprise and a shock. There was one night that my mom was making dinner. She would have to make 7-course meals for him, and he had been gone all day at work, and so she made a meal.
He would demand these 7-course meals?
Yeah. So she made, it's so funny, but she made pigs in the blanket. I don't know.
Oh, I remember pigs in the blanket. I love pigs in the blanket.
Well, she made that, and that's not what he wanted. Oh. And so when he got to the dinner table, he was very angry. So he took the whole table and threw it against the wall, and went into
you and your
mom.
sisters witnessed
We were
this?
all watching. Yeah. So I was 9, and then my sisters are 3 and 4 years older than me, and so we all, were grabbed onto each other. But we see my mom; she runs in the kitchen, and he runs after her, and then pulls a knife out of the knife drawer, and then holds it to her throat. And so
is that when you left?
Yeah.
Your mom took you?
Well, my mom had, and was awful because my mom was never allowed to work. So she had no money to herself. And my father also was a gambler, unfortunately. So we moved almost every 30 days at times because we couldn't afford to stay in the house. So we'd have to pack up and move to another one because he would bet away our rent. And matter of fact, when my mother was getting ready to deliver my sister, she's in the hallway, and my father runs in and goes, "I lost the money to deliver the baby." Yeah, on a basketball game. So my grandfather had to come and rescue. So he was known to do that.
And Julieann, where is this?
Oh, well, okay. So I was born in Burbank, California.
Oh, okay.
And we were raised, in Los Angeles till we went to Huntington Beach. And so this is what happened when we went to Huntington Beach. And so that night we were screaming, "Mom, what are we going to do? What are we going to do?" Well, he goes in the back room to get something, and my mom just goes, "Girls, grab your coats. We're leaving now." And she had $20 that she had stolen from him, or taken from him, just, in the past, just in case we ever needed something. So
She left with 3 young children
Yes.
and $20?
$20. And we went walking all around Huntington Beach in the parks. We get to this one park, and all of a sudden we're walking, all hand in hand, and we see this car coming up onto the grass of the park, and we're like, "Oh my God, it's him!" And so we're screaming. We're like, "Mom!" And so my sisters and I, we went and ran and hid behind a bush, and she's running. And he gets out of the car, and he's running after her, and he's about to like grab her by the hair. And we screamed, "Mom!" And she was like, I don't know what happened, but something crazy happened, and she just ran faster than she's ever ran before. And he got mad, gets back in the car, and then tries to find us through the car. And my sister was hurt by, running and sprained her ankle real bad. And so then he finally left the park, and we're just wandering the streets trying to figure out what are we going to do.
But Julieann, you tell this story about the children and your mom escaping, but there had to be feelings about leaving your dad, your daddy.
You're right. And I'll tell you something, that was hard. That's why I feel so much for people that go through this kind of thing, the parents, because, no matter how horrible the father is, it still was my dad. Mm-hmm. And we looked alike. We were a lot alike. He would make me laugh. I would always, come and curl up on his chest because, I didn't see a lot of the stuff that was happening behind the scenes because we were kids too.
But you saw some.
I did see some, yes. And so that was hard, and I didn't understand. Some crazy things that would happen is my dad would travel a lot because he sold franchises, and then he also was a car salesman. So he would travel all over. He would just do some really weird things, like he would have the police come to our door when he'd be traveling, and my mom would go to the door, and it'd be like the sheriff, and he'd say, "Mrs. Davis, I'm so sorry to tell you this, but your husband's been found dead in a hotel."
And he wasn't dead?
And he wasn't dead.
Wait, how could he get the police to do that?
I don't know. That was not just one time. The first time, we all freaked out, crying, screaming, like, "What?" And then he would call.
And what was the purpose? What was he looking to accomplish?
Well, that's what I don't know. I know. I was too young to know, to say, why would you do that? You know what I mean? I didn't know. That happened many times. As a matter of fact, the last time it happened, my mom just laughed and said, "Yeah, I wish that was true," and she slams the door.
She said that to the police?
She said it to the police.
Oh, my gosh.
Because at that point, she's like, "Please let it be true. Please let it be true." My mom was just living in hell. She really was, and did not know what to do because, she, in her family, divorce was not going to happen.
So that's why she felt she had to stay because it'll be a mark on the family.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
she eventually left. And did you ever see your dad again after that?
Well, we saw him in court, actually. Well, actually, okay. We saw him that night because we went to a gas station, and my mom called my aunt. And my aunt lived in Huntington Harbor, and my grandma was living there too at the time. And so she said, "We need help. Please help us." And so they came and got us, and they brought us to their house. And that night, here he comes driving up. Now, Huntington Harbor, if anybody knows, it's a very nice neighborhood on the water, and very wealthy. You just don't have usually some crazy guy pulling up in a car with a baseball bat trying to knock down a door. And the worst part is my uncle and my aunt, they were like the commanders of the yacht club. And so it looked really bad. on their behalf. And so we were, this is my only memory. I just remember hearing him screaming and as he's banging on the door, and we're all crying. And so my mom was like, just, you girls, you've got to go upstairs. I don't want you to see this. And so that before we went upstairs, we went in the kitchen and we all got steak knives. And we went into, and I slept with my grandma. And so we all slept with different people. And so I went in there and we all put our knives under our pillows just in case he were to come in. So that was really the last time I saw him until we now go to court. So that's fast forward.
Wow.
And it was hard at court because, he was
your
so,
daddy.
it was
You're
my
looking at your
dad. I
daddy.
know. It was so sad because you're looking at him and he's fine in court, right? Because he's not.
And he's putting on his best face
Yeah.
in court.
And and I loved him.
Of course you did.
And I remember one time we knew that, something was going to change, obviously, because my mom couldn't keep living like this. And I remember being in my bedroom saying, we didn't know anything about God, but I was just saying, but I love my dad. And, people, my sisters and my mom were like, but your dad is bad. We can't stay here. And I just, being the
It's
youngest.
just not safe to be around him.
No, it was not.
And where is he today?
Well, he's gone.
He's
He
gone.
went to, I'd love to say he went to go be with Jesus, but that'll be something I'll have to wait because on his deathbed, he told my cousin that he did not want to accept Christ as his Lord and Savior. He said that he knew that he was going to hell. And I actually was pregnant with
But we don't know, do we?
We don't.
We don't know.
We don't. And I was pregnant with my second daughter, and he had some kind of a weird virus, and they would not. I went to the hospital, but there was caution tape on the door, and they said, "Oh no, you're pregnant. You can't go in there." So I never got to go in and see
And you
him.
knew the Lord at that point when your dad passed?
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll get into that
We'll
part
get to
of
that.
it.
Yeah. I thought about him.
So
but I
you didn't
really
grow up with the Lord in your
No.
family. You didn't. Okay.
No,
so-
Jesus Christ was a cuss word. That was it. That's all I knew. But I also, my mom's side of the family was Catholic, and so we would go to church on Christmas and Easter. But
Creasters.
Yes.
Christmas and Easters.
But we'd go, and I'd be like, "What are they saying?" And I there was no relationship, and they didn't speak in English a lot of times. They
Right.
were speaking in Latin. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I didn't
grew up
know.
a Catholic myself.
Yeah.
And
So when I
didn't-
would laugh, my
Yeah.
mom would hit me and say, "Shh, don't do that."
Just be nice.
Yeah.
Be nice.
Exactly.
Oh, and so did she ever remarry?
Well, she did. She went on to remarry a few times.
Oh.
But now imagine my mom had no skills. She was not allowed to work. My father was so insanely jealous that he would not allow her to go outside the home. As a matter of fact, if she went to the grocery store, he would time her. And if, there was no cell phone, but he would be calling the store if she was not home by a certain time. And
He was very controlling.
well, he thought for sure she was having an affair with the butcher because the butcher would give her
Extra meat?
Yeah. How did you know that?
Very simple. I'm an Italian too. I know.
There you go. But yeah, he would do that. And so, and that's why I want to tell the story of the beginning, only because that's where fear came in.
Of course.
But
it's also establishing your relationship with men.
Yes.
Your relationship with your dad is the basis of how you look at men.
Yes.
So what did this do to you?
It was not good because I didn't trust any man. And it scared me to even let anybody try to get in and get close.
Did you have uncles?
Yeah, we
You
did.
didn't have a brother, right?
No,
You're all
no
girls,
brothers. But
right?
we had one uncle we had a couple uncles that were amazing, but one was just, what ended up happening is we left that aunt's house that night, and then we went to go stay with my mom's other sister, and then her husband was just, he would let us beat up on him. He would play with us. I mean, she had two small kids, so that was at least comforting that we could, but still there was it was an uncle.
Yeah.
It wasn't someone I was going to let in close anymore.
But he was a man.
Yeah.
So you had to be cautious and keep him at arm's length, I'm sure.
Yes. Oh,
But we'll get into
absolutely.
your relationship with men after we get out of your childhood. But this is quite a story. I'm still stuck on this idea that your dad would have the police come to the house and tell your mom a lie.
I know.
I mean,
I mean, why would someone do that? I really don't know. I mean, we couldn't figure it out.
Wow.
But he also would, we had a dog, And we had several dogs, but we would have dogs, and he would let them go, or just, and my one sister was just a dog lover. I mean, she'd be the one to take home all the strays. And we had this one dog, and I don't know, why would someone do this? We would he'd make us come and sit on the back porch, and we'd have to watch him just beat the dogs with the rakes.
Oh.
Like, who does that? And he knew that it was just devastating, for us to watch something like that. And it was just like, that's that sick mind. Like, who would do that? But he would beat the dog with the rake, and we'd be crying, and we'd have to stay there. And then one time I remember we had a swing set. We were all on the swings, and we're having a great time, and he's pushing us. And again, really fun day. And all of a sudden, he grabs his chest, and he falls down. And he makes like he's having a heart attack. So we all run over to him, screaming, "Daddy, Daddy," and he was kidding.
I'm almost laughing because I'm an actress, and I used to do this for grading. So I'm laughing because my family knows that I would stage these little death scenes and see if I could get anybody to believe me. But there was a reason behind it. But so there's a little bit of a smirk here, but I'm absolutely, I don't know what to say about a man who does this to the family.
I know.
For good. I mean, I was doing a role once where I had a bullet hole in my forehead, and my son was very young, and the makeup people did this beautiful bullet in my forehead, and my son was being brought to me after school to hang out on the set, and I remember laying down in the parking lot so that my son could come. But at this point, he knew that I did this, so I wanted him to see me with the bullet hole. So there's a little bit of a smirk, but doesn't mean that what your dad did was at all funny.
He meant it for, like, I don't even know. Like, there's no, we can't even fathom why someone would do that to, I mean, the only thing I could think of was he wanted to see if we loved him.
Well,
I mean, that could be. He never cheated on my mom.
Well,
nothing
that's a good point.
It's actually, I wish he would have actually. That would have been a little easier to handle. But no,
if he cheated on your mom?
If he cheated on my mom, but he never did that. But because that would be something we wouldn't see. Anyway, but he just did some really crazy things. And I mean, I guess it would be because of the mixture of the drugs and the alcohol just kind of mess with his head.
Well, I can't begin to analyze all of the things that you're saying he was experiencing, but it sounds like it is very damaging history for the three of you girls.
Yes.
And your mom. But she went on.
Yeah, my mom, well, again,
married
no skills.
Again.
no skills at all. So my grandma gives my mom $1,000 and says, sink or swim, that's all I got for you.
Well, it's in addition to the 20.
The $20, right? So we have $1,020. So my mom gets a job as a switchboard operator. They like pull at the harbor. She got a job as a janitor. 2 jobs as a janitor. So she was a janitor for 2 different office buildings, and then she was the switchboard operator. And we lived in a 1-room apartment, and it was the 4 of us in there. And so we just had twin beds all inside this room, and it was that was just us. But boy, did we feel safe.
I was going to say, could be the happiest days, right?
We could see him drive because our apartment.
Your dad?
Backed up, to a main street in Huntington Beach, and he would go look for us all the time. We knew his car, of course, and we'd see him. If you could look out the window, you could see him driving by. But he never knew that we lived in that apartment building.
Oh, boy. But living with that fear that he would
Yes.
know. So did you have to be careful about how you went
out? And this is
back?
so crazy, too. We also changed. Okay, so my mom meets a guy, and he was a contractor, and he would just call in, and so she was the switchboard operator. So they would just have conversations, and it turns out that he was just a really nice guy, and he knew the situation. I think they went on 1 or 2 dates, and then he asked her to marry him because he knew that she
after
needed
1
help.
or 2 dates.
Yeah, he knew that she needed help. And he wasn't just going to give her money, you know what I mean? So what we did was we got into school, but we took our birth certificates and this is so bad, but we took bleach and we bleached out our last names, and so that my father couldn't find us.
Oh, did you take the new husband's name?
So my last name became Cabral, which he was a Portuguese man. So we took that name so that we could, not be found. in
Now,
school.
were your mom and dad legally divorced?
At that point, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because when we went to
And
court.
he didn't have any rights to
No.
visitation?
No. No.
And
only
he
'cause
was
Bob-
not asked to give alimony? to pay them?
Oh, well, no. He wouldn't have done it, but
Even
yeah.
if he was?
Yeah,
Even
he
if
wouldn't have
was.
done it. So yeah, no, my mom, we had nothing. I mean, we had nothing. So we had, back then.
I
there
need
was-
to give Janet an extra hug the next time I
You
see her.
do.
Wow.
No one, it's funny because my mom now is 83 years old, and the things that woman has been through is just amazing.
Yeah.
And she's a healthy, wonderful, beautiful 83-year-old.
Yeah, she's wonderful, and she does not look 83.
No,
She does
but
not
could you
look 83.
imagine what do you do? I had 2 daughters. I can't even imagine having 3 kids and what am I going to do? I have no money, no skills I've got no education, nothing, but she does blame herself because my grandfather was a famous clothing designer from Italy, and she really loved fashion. So he said, if you don't marry this guy that we don't like, he was very clear, don't marry him. If you don't marry him, I will send you to the finest schools in Rome, and you will be a designer.
And what happened?
She chose the loser.
Gosh.
She chose my father. And
Well,
and
it was her path.
and my grandfather told her the day she got married. He told him, he said, don't ever, I never want to see my daughter back on my doorstep. It's probably an Italian thing.
Yes.
Right. So I never want to see my daughter back, and if you do, I'll kill you. Italian,
Yes.
you don't know what kind of
Yeah.
connections they have. But yeah, so that's why my mom could not go to a family member and say anything, although they all knew because
Except her sister. She went to her
well, that was after we left because my grandpa just had died. That's why it was like that. Like everything kind of met at one time. It was like, oh, this is the perfect time, because we used to call my grandfather Bubby. Bubby had died, and it was the perfect time for us to leave. Other than that, she wouldn't have left. She just wouldn't have done that to her father.
Okay, so then she remarries.
Right. So she remarries my stepdad. He was an amazing man. He just did not know how to talk to people, to women. Didn't know how to raise kids. And so he was a contractor. The F word was like the word "the" in our house. So imagine you've got these 3 young girls and everything is an F-bomb everywhere. And he would only drink on Friday nights.
Okay, I have a feeling that this is going to be another great story
Yes.
in your history. Should we table this for our next episode?
I think so. I think it's a good cliffhanger.
Okay, and then I want to hear also how you learned to get rid of those words in your
Yes.
mouth. If you were using them in your household, how did you learn to not use them anymore? So we'll talk about that.
Oh, yes.
Okay, well, I look forward to our next episode with Julieann Hartman as we dig deep and get to know what drives this woman of passion. Thanks for being with us. I'm Connie Salica with Julieann Hartman.
Thanks, you guys.